Hi. So the other day, someone asked me what computer should they get for cybersecurity. And I get this question all of the time. What operating should I get? Mac, Windows, or Linux? How many CPUs do I need? How much storage should I get for practicing cybersecurity things and whatnot? What if I told you that you didn't have to buy a computer at all and you could have Mac OS and Linux up and running within 5 minutes and not pay anything for any of these operating systems? And on top of that, if you made a mistake and you destroyed your operating system, you could easily just delete it and then recreate a new one. Sounds fantastic. A complete dream for me. Never have to go buy hardware, never have to go to Micro Center ever again. Sounds great. In this video, I'm going to go over how you can do just that and deploy these operating systems within an AWS cloud environment, specifically a Windows Server instance within AWS, but I'll show you how you can basically do it with any operating system. I do have a free cybersecurity project list below where it has open source free projects that you can do within Google Cloud, Azure, AWS, digital forensics, the SOC, all types of different types of labs that you can do to gain practice and see what you really like to do. That is below in the link, so make sure to check that out. Before we get started, what exactly is a virtual machine and what exactly is the cloud? The cloud is basically outsourced equipment to somebody else, and it encompasses basically everything that exists within IT, but maybe more abstracted. That seems very vague. That's because the cloud is a very large place. And a virtual machine is basically a computer within a computer. So when you set up a virtual machine within cloud, you're basically outsourcing your computer within a computer to someone else. You can do a lot more things than just set up an operating system. You can set up a website and host it yourself. You can set up an entire infrastructure, which there is actually a project that you can do below in the link to set up an entire infrastructure to practice web application security. You may want to host a database, which you can also do within the cloud. And the best thing is you don't have to buy any hardware or equipment or upgrade any of that. You can just set it up. You can access it anywhere that you have an internet connection. So you don't need to lug around these 20 computers that you have set up for your home lab. If you learn the cloud now, you're going to be ahead of a lot of people who work in IT but actually have never used the cloud because they're so used to on-premise equipment. So if you can gain those skills before everybody has those skills, you can be really ahead. I give it 2 to 3 more years before basically everyone is going to have cloud skills. But hey, so let's get started with that AWS free tier. All right. So AWS free tier is awesome and probably one of the best free offers out there. Basically, you can launch an Amazon EC2, which is a virtual machine, for 750 hours per month for an entire year. Very cool. You also have 5 gigabytes of free storage. It's easy to get started and it costs you basically nothing. Just make sure at some point to turn it off or get in the habit of turning it off because you're only charged for what you use, basically. Now let's get into creating a virtual machine or EC2 instance in Amazon. What we're going to do is we are going to log on to Amazon. And now this seems scary and it has tons of different services and it's overwhelming, to be honest. And that's because this is like an entire infrastructure and everything you could ever think of within just one area. It's a lot to learn. And just remember, nobody knows all of this. Most people know a very small portion of this. We are just going to type in EC2 up here, the search bar, and then we are just going to go to this giant yellow launch instance. And now here is the launch instance place. So we're just going to name it. You can name it whatever. And then we are going to choose the application in OS images. So these are Amazon machine images. Unfortunately, there's no Windows 10, but there is a Windows Server 2022 that you can utilize. There's Amazon Linux, there is Red Hat, basically anything that you can think of except for Windows 10, Amazon has. You can have a Mac OS operating system. You can have hardened, there's OpenVPN access servers, F5 virtual machines. Just keep in mind that it's $1.67 an hour. But if you wanted to practice with F5, which is a really popular vendor, you could, and you could learn targeted skills for that. But in this one, we're just going to launch a Windows server. We can just type in Windows here, and then we're just going to select the base, and then we're going to continue, and then there we go. Next is we're going to choose the instant type. Now, this is the size of your virtual machine, and different instances have different amounts of CPU power, memory, RAM, storage, etc. So this takes away your needing to upgrade a computer every couple of years because you need more storage or you need more RAM or any of that. For this one, the free tier is just 1 core, 1 GB of memory, super slow. You can go up to 96 cores. I'm not 100% sure why you'd want to do that. You can also compare the instance types if you want to get more involved in that. The next is the key pair. And so the key pair is the set of security credentials that you're going to use to connect to your instance securely. The key pair consists of a public key, which AWS stores for you, and a private key, which you store. You use this private key to connect to your instance. Next is the network settings, and these define where your instance lives on the network. So the VPC, which is Virtual Private Cloud, is a virtual network within AWS, and the subnet is a subdivision of that VPC. You can also set whether your instance gets a public IP address, which would let it be accessible from your internet. If you don't auto assign it right here, you'll have to go and then manually assign IP address, which is a pain, to be honest. And then we have security groups, and the security group in AWS is like a virtual firewall for your instance. It defines what kind of network traffic can reach your instance, and for example, you might allow this H traffic, which you would use to connect to your instance from your own IP address. And so because this is Windows, you're also going to want to make sure RDP is enabled, port 3389, and that is because how you connect to a Windows machine through remote desktop is through RDP, which is also highly insecure. There are also a lot of more advanced details here, but you don't really have to worry about any of that. These would only be things you would need to change for specific use cases. For example, you can set whether or not you want your instance to be optimized for EBS storage, whether it's part of a placement group, which determines how instances are arranged in the data center, etc. Honestly, this is just getting way, way too much in the technical weeds. You don't need any of that. And now that we have this, we're just going to create a new key pair. All right, and now we're just going to click Launch Instance. And then you basically just set up a computer really quickly. Great. Now we can go to View All Instances, and then you're going to see your machine right here. It has that public IP address. You can just click on it, and then you can see all of the settings and all of that. Here's where you would play around with different security group roles, or if you wanted to maybe change the public IP for some strange reason, add some storage, and then we're going to go back to instances, and then we can go to connect, and then we can go to RDP client, and then we can go to get password. But as we can see, we need to wait at least 4 minutes. All right, so I'll be back in a second. All right, now that we have waited that 4 minutes, we can then just click on it to show you how I got there. Click on it, go to connect. Now we can go to RDP client. And now to get the password to log in, we can just get password, and then we're going to upload that private key that I downloaded just recently. We're going to download that. Here is the RSA private key. And then we are just going to decrypt password. I'm going to click on that and I'm going to edit this out so you can't see the password, but this will basically give you your password. Now, this process is going to be different if you're on a Windows or Mac computer. I'm on a Mac, so I had to download Microsoft Remote Desktop. But if you're on a Windows, I believe it already comes there. Now we're just going to paste in that password. We're just going to continue. And then there we have it. Now we have set up our machine in the cloud. It's basically just an outsourced computer in a sense. Now you can basically do anything. You can mess up things, you can destroy it, and you can just delete it and then recreate it. So that concludes this video on how to create a virtual machine. Now you can also use Google Cloud and Azure, but I personally just prefer AWS because it has a lot of functionality. Let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you in the next video.